Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Glenn, and I'm a believer in Jesus. I'm in recovery for codependency, bitterness, and anger. In 1 John 5:11, we are reminded of the profound truth that our source of life is found in God through His Son, Jesus Christ. This realization has been a journey for me, recognizing my limitations and acknowledging powerlessness over my struggle has been a crucial step in my spiritual growth. Echoing Principle 1 of Celebrate Recovery, Principle 1 reads, I realize I am not God. I admit that I am powerless to control my tendencies to do the wrong things and that my life is unmanageable. I used to believe I could control every aspect of my life, but I realized that's not true, and I've since been working on surrendering that mindset to God. Our experience of pain and hardship serves as a testimony to God's faithfulness and love. Through the darkest moments in my life, I've learned to trust in God's presence and provision. Even in the midst of suffering, I can find gratitude, knowing that each trial has ultimately led me closer to Him. I was born in 1989 at the University of Iowa Hospital. I was born 3 months early, only weighing in at 3 pounds and 2 ounces. Growing up, I was always told I was a miracle child. I was in the NICU for 3 months. Though I did not need oxygen because I could breathe on my own, I was kept due to my heart rate. It kept going down, and the doctors tried giving me caffeine, hoping to bring it up. To their surprise, it didn't work. They said it went back up on its own. I grew up not knowing my biological father, only that my mom left him when I was still in the hospital because he put his hands on my then 9-month-old brother, resulting in 2 black eyes. When I was 4, my mom remarried, and he was the only father figure in my life, besides my grandpa. I didn't know it then, but my home life was about to change, and not for the better. Around my 5th birthday, I remember my mom leaving to go shopping. I couldn't go because they were birthday shopping for me. I remember wanting to go because I didn't want to be left alone with him. From that time on, from the age of 5 to 16, my stepdad began to sexually abuse me. He would lie and manipulate me and tell me other girls your age are doing it and show me pictures. He also lied and told me that my mom already knew. When I was 12, some Mormon elders came into our house and told us about Jesus. It was the first time I really heard about him and that name was said in our house. Our family started going to the Mormon church, and we were all baptized together. Though we were hearing about Jesus, and my stepdad was learning to be an elder in the church, he also was the one who performed the baptisms. Nothing changed in our home. He was still the same. In 2002, we moved to Washington, and our family continued to go to that church for a while, but then we suddenly stopped going. My brother and I continued to affiliate with that church by attending groups such as Young Women's and Young Men's until I was 16. When I was 16, a friend of mine wanted me to go with her to the guidance counselor at our high school to support her. I said okay. The guidance counselor asked me if I was there to talk, and I couldn't hold back any longer. I told her what was going on at home, and I felt a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. The secret I held on to for so long was finally over and in the open. He left, but my life and my family's lives changed. His family blamed me and accused me of lying. I was seen as a spoiled child and a homewrecker. My mom couldn't afford to stay in the house, so we had to move. I started my senior year at a new school. At our new home, some relatives came to stay with us for a while. Unbeknown to us, they brought a Ouija board into our house. A dark presence was felt after that. One night, I felt attacked by this presence. I told my mom there was something in my room that attacked me and clawed me. She thought I was crazy. And I was already seeing a therapist at that time for my depression and my abuse that I experienced for years. Everything spiraled down after that. I started skipping school, drinking on the weekends with my friends, and I even started dating and having sexual relations, which I never thought I would ever do. I ended up moving out right after my graduation in 2007 and living with my boyfriend and at his parents' house. Feeling out of control, I sought help. I ended up at a church looking for a pastor or a priest. I ended up finding a priest and knocked on his door. He said he was in a meeting and did not have time to talk, so he came back with some water and sprinkled it over me and said a prayer and then told me to leave and close the door in my face. A few months later, my grandma called me and told me she had slipped on ice and broke her ankle and needed help. My boyfriend at the time did not want to take me. We fought, and he drove off and left me at a Hy-Vee parking lot. That relationship ended. A few months later, still staying with my grandparents, I found out I was pregnant. I was 18 at the time, but before I found out, I was a lot of partying with friends and drinking and taking pills. A month later, at my first ultrasound, I was given the worst news. I was 5 months pregnant and my baby had multiple complications. I was given the choice to go through with the pregnancy or abort the pregnancy. They said that if I went through with the pregnancy, the baby would be a stillborn. I chose to abort it and blamed myself at what was wrong with the baby. I fell more into depression and drowning in guilt and shame. I found myself back at the Mormon church I grew up with. But I started to question more about why they talked more about this Joseph Smith guy than Jesus in the Book of Mormon, which I never read. But I kind of took the cookie cutter part of who Jesus was and that he died for me. One day, I ended up talking to my grandma about the Mormon church and how they talk more about Joseph Smith than Jesus, and she told me about a church she was going to and invited me to come with her. So I did. I went to church and heard the message, and they talked about Jesus, and no Joseph Smith was mentioned. It was a breath of fresh air. I asked the pastor if I could be baptized. I wanted to recommit my life to Jesus. I got baptized in 2011 and was joining connection groups and Bible studies, and it was great. But as time went on, I fell back and got caught up with daily life again and drifted away back into parties, and I felt tormented. I started having night terrors and headaches. Even though I still would attend church and go up at the altar calls for prayer and met with the elders a few times, I always seemed to leave feeling unsatisfied and empty because I was going to church on the weekends and getting filled up, but it was leaving and going back to my weekly routine with my job and friends. I just felt trapped in my relationship. I felt unworthy knowing the guilt and everything of the lifestyle I was living and having unmarital relations with my boyfriend. I couldn't do it anymore. Wanting to seek help and answers to my problems, I sought help, but in the wrong places. I chose to seek psychics and read tarot cards and listening to psychics online. I ended up being scammed by these people in the process and losing hundreds of dollars through the New Age religion. Feeling trapped in my relationship in 2013, I moved out of my boyfriend's house and started staying with my friend for 8 months. I got a new job, but staying with this friend's influence led me into partying almost every weekend. And I started doing things I wouldn't normally do. I started smoking. I even tried marijuana and popping pills and being promiscuous. During this time, through a friend, I also met the guy who is now my husband. We started talking for hours on the phone. The first time we met in person, there was an instant connection. We both felt like an electric current was between us. A few months later, after meeting, he found out he had scabies at that time, and he told me he was homeless. I knew this, but that didn't matter to me, so we all got treated because I was in close contact with him. I was mad because it took months to get rid of them, and I started seeing someone else during this time because I broke up with him. I hooked up with this guy and ended up with an STD. During this, I somehow knew it was discipline from God, but thankfully it was curable. During this, my now husband was still contacting me, but I kept telling him to leave me alone. He told me that God told him to keep texting me, that I was doing things I wouldn't normally do, that it was out of character for me, and to keep bugging me. I told him to leave me alone, but at this point I was thinking of trying a new drug, but I never did end up doing it. 2 weeks later, after that phone call of me telling him off, I ended up calling him back and telling him I felt like God was telling me I needed to leave and move in with him and that we needed to get married. So I left with just 2 suitcases and moved to Washington. We got a place together, and 8 months later, we got married in a courthouse. We were married on September 23rd in 2014. The first year of our marriage, we almost got a divorce, but God kept us together. God told us that we needed to be baptized and commit our lives in marriage to Him. On August 24th of 2016, my husband and I both got baptized, and on September 23rd of 2016, on our 2-year anniversary, we renewed our vows in the church, and I got to wear a wedding dress at that time. I also asked my stepdad to walk me down the aisle because I wanted to start a new chapter in my life and close on the old one. I also forgave him for the abuse that he did to me. But through all of that, I still suffered night terrors and spiritual attacks. It wasn't until I fully committed myself to God that He took those things away. When I finally did surrender and stopped trying to fight my own battles, that's when He changed everything and He blessed me so much. In Joel 2 of the NKJV, this verse says, "So I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, my great army which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dealt wondrously with you, and my people shall never be put to shame." God has blessed me with 3 beautiful children, and my husband and I just celebrated 10 years of marriage, and I'm celebrating 10 years of sobriety. God brought us to CR through a friend, and we have been attending going on 3 years now. Neither of us thought we needed CR when we started going, but God said otherwise. The benefits of working the program opened my eyes to the truth. I was still carrying a lot of baggage and hurts. And through the program at Celebrate Recovery, I am able to work through my hurts. In August of last year, I completed my first 12-step study. It was an honor to be in the group with wonderful women. They have been great supporters and encouragement for me. Although I had a hard time in my life, God was always there, whether I knew it or not. In my most dark times, God was present, and He always will be. He is my rock and salvation, my peace beyond understanding. One of my favorite verses is Proverbs 3:5-6. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight." To the one struggling with hurts and habits and hang-ups, you are not alone. His grace is sufficient to overcome even the darkest night. There is always hope in Christ. I know you have a story, and there are many of us who want to hear that story. You matter, and people here, including myself, want to share the love of Jesus with you. Thank you for letting me share my story and journey with you, and that it was hope and encouragement this evening. My name is Erica Glenn, and I'm a believer in Jesus.